Welcome to the Sunday morning meditation service. This is a time of a lot of changes that are taking place on the planet, and it's really important that we meditate at this time so that we prepare ourselves with the oneness with the Creator as we start each day, because changes are happening so fast and we want them all to be for the good. So if we make that commitment to really start our day with the spiritual path, we'll be adding to the strength of the oneness that's trying to come onto the planet right now. The understanding that guides us to be more thoughtful, more kind, more peaceful, channels of blessings, not adding to the problems, but lifting us above the problems into the light and taking so many people with us. So that's why we meditate. Okay. This is a call and response, and just let those words come out and the voice come out any way that it does. It's perfect. Okay. Spirit of ecstasy, we are one, one with beloved. Golden light, in the candle flame, deep in you, I feel the same. in the candle flame. Deep in you, I feel the same. Open to the holy, holy stillness. Open to the holy, holy stillness. God is love, loving, beloved. God is love, loving, beloved. Beloved, 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 beloved.
Good morning, everyone. I will start today by explaining why I was not here for the second Revelation talk last Sunday at either services. That was because Norma and I were invited to the introductory campaign speech of Robert Kennedy Jr., and there we are in the great hall of the Plaza Hotel in Boston. We got an invitation, we went. That's my son Dell there, all the way on the left, who many of you have seen and are already aware of. He is now on the team of Robert Kennedy Jr. for the presidency. Dell is now the creative point person for his campaign. And we were invited, yes. We were invited, and the amazing thing about it was when we got there, I immediately went to the mezzanine where they're setting up. This is the day before he gave the speech that everybody should hear. Dell was there directing and setting it all up. But outside that mezzanine area right there, I came down immediately from the room while Norma was getting prepared, gussied up. I just roll out of a cab and go where I want to go. It's like, but when I got there, there's a guy standing there in a suit with one of those things in his ear. And he says, "Sir, please stand still where you are." what business do you have here? I pointed into the room. I said, oh, I'm with him. And he said, you're with Robert Kennedy Jr.? I said, no, I'm with the guy next to him, the guy that's running this show. So, and there's another security guard behind him. It's an interesting way they set this up. He stands there, so if something happens, 10 feet away behind him is another security guard who would take over. I mean, if anything, if there was any kind of altercation, that guy would jump in and shoot you. So Del waved me in, and we went in, and we spent most of that morning watching the whole preparations for this. There are over 20 security people at this event, and it was headed by the guy that wrote the book on security. He's the #1 security person. This is his entire team in the country. He wrote the book on it. And we actually had the opportunity to fly back to Austin from Boston to Austin on his private jet, which is not some tiny 4 or 6-seater private jet. It seats like about 12, 15 people, has a section in the back, has a person serving food. It's all bigger than anything we have ever been in financially. We went back and spent the week in Austin at Del's place. Amazing things happen. If you were to see the journey of Del as I have seen it and watched it, you would absolutely see the hand of divine intervention taking place. So this is an amazing time, just an amazing time, especially in his life. And a number of the big Democrats were at over 1,000 people. There was another room, standing room only, in which they put a video which had another 800 or 900 people show up for the event, but it seated about 1,000 in this big mezzanine auditorium. So anyway, that's why I wasn't here. In the meantime, you know that these Revelation talks were titled "The Flaw in a Course in Miracles." And as I said at the first talk, I am not going, people expected that I would tell you the flaw in the Course in Miracles, and then I'd comment on it, and that's what all these talks would be about. I'm going to be talking about the Course in Miracles, but if you are awake and listening, you will discover the flaw in A Course in Miracles. And it is discoverable, and it is blatant, and it is detrimental, but it actually may be, this is incredible, divinely detrimental. I'll explain that when I find somebody who comes up with, the first person that tells me what the flaw in A Course in Miracles is, I'm going to give them a copy, an autographed copy of one of my books. Somebody's already sent in something that they said they believed was the flaw in A Course in Miracles. I thank you for your sending this in, sent it in a beautiful card to me. It was on my desk when I got back, and stated that the flaw is, I am is the name of God, is a flaw in A Course in Miracles. Not so, not at all so. I am is the name of the omnipresent God. It's an omnipresent name, and everything that is God. All right, so I'm not going to go into talking about that. I have something else to say today. So I want to begin today with this particular PowerPoint. This inscription above the entrance to the ancient Greek temple of Apollo Know thyself, all things in moderation. Such a saying might have been ignored by the people of Greece at that time, and may still be ignored by the people of Greece at that time, just as it is ignored by the people in this country and most other countries, because we think we know myself. We know the self, and we don't. If you know the self, the true self, your worries would disappear. Your worries about life would disappear. But we don't. What we are attempting to relate as the true self is merely the collection of concepts, beliefs that one acquires in life while developing the egocentric perception being referred to as myself. For most people, the self they believe they know is merely their ego-centered perception that developed with their accumulation of the ideas that they were exposed to growing up and living. All right, so the spiritual journey thus becomes one of removing the blocks, the deep-seated blocks one has developed to the truth of the presence of God, the intelligence of life in every moment available, the omnipresence of this intelligence which is breathing us. And I suspect the people of Greece, you know, they went past that entrance statement into the temple and besought the god Apollo to intervene in their lives for maybe some kind of physical healing or some kind of to deal with some problem they were having, or just to fulfill their personal desires for life. And they pass under that entrance over and over again, but never really look into coming into the reality of that truth. And coming into the reality of that truth, one has to begin to be conscientiously introspective. Can one be honest enough to evaluate his or her life and know whether or not how you are living is effective in bringing you happiness, insight, peace, health, joy? Because so many people who are caught up in living without truly being introspective or honest about life have accepted a definition of life that is completely erroneous and cannot ever produce, bring forth, establish in that person the joy, the peace, the happiness that one is seeking. And so it requires an awakening and a decision to become more awake in living one's life. So to let you know what that awake awareness is, just as knowing the self is a complete transformative condition in awareness. So now Paul, the apostle, traveled to Greece. He probably saw the temple to Apollo, and he probably saw many other temples and shrines dedicated to the gods of the Greek people of that ancient time. And this is what he had to say. You can read this in the book of Acts, chapter 17, verses 22 to 28. So Paul, standing in the middle of the Acropolis, said, "People of Athens, I perceive that in every way you are very religious. For as I passed along and observed the objects of your worship, I found also an altar with the inscription, 'To an unknown God.' What therefore you worship as unknown, this I proclaim to you. The God who made the world and everything in it, being Lord of heaven and earth, does not live in shrines made by man, nor is he served by human hands, as though he needed anything, since God gives to all people life and breath and everything, and God made from one every nation to live on all the face of the earth, having determined allotted periods and the boundaries of their habitation, that they should seek God, in the hope that they might feel after her and find her. Yet God is not far from each one of us, for in God's presence we live and move and have our being, as even some of your poets have said, for we are indeed God's offspring." Whatever we may have been exposed to in this fast-paced, highly intellectually oriented society in which we were born and raised, whatever we were exposed to, it does not change the reality of creation. It does not change the truth that there is a creator. We are not personally self-created. And once we recognize that there is this creator, we then must understand, by trial and error possibly, our relationship to the creator, and finally understanding why there is this emphasis on doing the will of God, which means reprising the nature of God in ourselves, so that God, who is not separate from anything created, certainly permeates all creation, and that includes who we are. And that is the nature of God, that is the will of God, that we should find our way into that nature and thus understand what it finally means to be truly alive, in happiness, in total peace of mind, and insight into life eternal. That's it. You either are going to enter that journey seriously, or you will live unconsciously, which is the way Eckhart Tolle refers to it, sleepwalking through life. So, realizing this truth, the God of all existence, is also understood by all the masters who call us to take to task our own awareness, become more honestly awake in your living. And then you will decide to make those adjustments required to live effectively, joyfully, beautifully, harmoniously. And this is what the Master Eckhart Tolle says in relationship to the same thing Paul said. You can read this in Stillness Speaks. That's page 43, paragraph 2. The now is as it is because it cannot be otherwise. What Buddhists have always known, physicists now confirm. There are no isolated things or events. Underneath the surface appearance, all things are interconnected, are part of the totality of the cosmos that has brought about the form that this moment takes. For someone who hasn't even begun to look into these deep truths, hearing something or seeing something like this is really difficult to take in. I'll read it again, though, and you can take it with you. The now is as it is because it cannot be otherwise. What Buddhists have always known, physicists now confirm. There are no isolated things or events. Underneath the surface appearance, all things are interconnected, are part of the totality of the cosmos that has brought about the form that this moment takes. Thus, our spiritual quest for happiness, fulfillment, love, and peace entails removing our lifelong blocks to the higher self in all as all. Removing our lifelong blocks to the higher self, that presence that is in all as all. In doing that, we can allow the dogma of religion to quietly dissolve. Because the more we're open to that truth, the more the very presence of this intelligence and love occurs to us consciously. And so, when we get up in the morning, we may have been used to reading the newspaper, drinking a cup of coffee, or going to the coffee shop, or whatever, and involving ourselves in more of the mental aspects of living life in an attempt to figure it out. But when we start our spiritual practice, we begin to awaken and to find this presence becoming more and more something to be embraced and enjoyed. So our first attempts at meditation might be difficult because we're so used to thinking and the incessant thinking of figuring things out and trying to figure out how to live better, more effectively, more harmoniously. But you see, the journey requires opening up to, relaxing the ego-centered thought process and allowing this intelligence at the core of our being to whisper the truth. So understanding this, our daily practice of mindfulness, which is to recognize, it is our daily practice to embrace mindfulness, and that is to recognize this omnipresence, to recognize God in every person, place, condition, situation, circumstance, to recognize God in the moment that appears moment to moment on what we call our path. Each path, your path, is God. And you allowing yourself to recognize that removes your resistance in the illusion of separation and the request for specialness. You become extraordinary in living freely, joyfully, harmoniously, in becoming at last non-resistant to the will of God. And so Eckhart Tolle will also say this, that's page 57, when you know who you truly are, there is an abiding, alive sense of peace. You could call it joy, because that's what joy is. Vibrantly alive peace. It is the joy of knowing yourself as the very life essence before life takes on form. That is the joy of being who you truly are. When you know who you truly are, there is an abiding, alive sense of peace. You could call it joy, because that's what joy is. Vibrantly alive peace. It is the joy of knowing yourself as the very life essence before life takes on form. That is the joy of being who you truly are. And that is what is stated almost repeatedly in the New Testament, but stated clearly in John, to be in the world, but no longer of the world. To be in the world as a God-inspired being, living the nature of God, the all-inspired nature of God. This is our calling. This is our destiny. This actually should be the result of eventually acknowledging that the world and the definitions of how to live happily ever after in the world simply fail to accomplish that. And then one seeks to find another way, which, by the way, is exactly the way Helen Schuckman, who channeled A Course in Miracles, she said to her, well, I guess Bill Thetford, who was the head of the university hospital that she worked in, when she related to him that the staff is more disjointed and disoriented than the very patients we're serving. We've got to find another way. That's what she said. We have to find another way to deal. And Bill Thetford suggested to her to start to, think about it, which probably meant meditate about it. Can you imagine those books standing against all the failed technology of humanity? I say failed in a sense that while it created incredible advancements in human engineering and what have you, it failed to ever bring us freedom, which was the supposition of those doing it, that with the right technology, we'll all be, and it's never going to happen because money has become the god of the Western culture and creation itself. So it's never going to happen. There's a funny line in the movie about Tesla, who had approached J.P. Morgan, with the idea that he knows now how to create the universal energy from the noon sphere so that everyone would have free energy. And this entrepreneur, this huge, wealthy billionaire, J.P. Morgan said, "Where will we put the meter? How will I make money from this?" And so that's our problem. The technology can't do it because we're never going to have that physical freedom in the world's sense. Freedom comes from the majesty of knowing the presence under all conditions and circumstances, free of the fear, concern, and worries that accompany the thinking of the world. That's freedom. And I'm going to share this final quote with you, and then we're going to do a meditation. Can I just have the, I'm going to just do a section of this quote. There's a Course in Miracles as well. To be wholehearted, you must be happy. If fear and love cannot coexist, and if it is impossible to be wholly fearful and remain alive, the only possible whole state is that of love. There is no difference between between love and joy. Therefore, the only possible whole state is the wholly joyous. To heal or to make joyous is therefore the same as to integrate and to make one. All right, we don't need that. You can just to integrate and to become one with what is, and flow with wisdom and insight in creation ongoing, because God is not separate from creation, and neither are you or I. All right, we're going to meditate together. If I can get Larry back out here, I'd like him to play a little music under this beautifully stated daily word. And following this beautifully stated daily word, I will lead a guided meditation. See, okay, here comes my orchestra. Close your eyes and take a couple of deep breaths. You are already where you need to be. You are hearing already what you need to hear. You were actually born to eventually find this. From the Daily Word, April 24th, 2023. I am on holy ground wherever I am. The world can feel like a cold and unwelcoming place sometimes. I may feel alone, the presence of God far away. At such times, I remind myself, there is nowhere I can be where God is not. I shift my perspective. I do not seek the presence of God. I find the presence of God on the soft breeze that caresses my face, in the sunlight that warms my skin, and in the sights and sounds that delight me and help me feel more alive. I find the presence of God in each person I encounter, just as I find it in and as myself. Finding God everywhere and in everything makes the world feel vibrant and alive to me. Makes the world feel warm and welcoming to me. The world has not changed, but I have. This world is magnificent, and its people are wonderfully, beautifully holy. Just become aware of your breathing. Breathing can be a prayer. It can be a mantra. Remembering to breathe when faced with difficulties, concerns, challenges. Remembering to breathe is a prayer and a pathway to remembering the presence of God. Just breathing, remembering to breathe, is a prayer, is a mantra, is a pathway to that divine presence. In which we live and move and have our lives. Just breathing is a miracle, a gift of creation, a calling to recognize our oneness with the Creator. Breathing is a prayer, a mantra, a pathway to remembering the divine presence in every person, in every place, in every condition. Breathing, remembering to breathe when challenged by the concerns of the world. Breathing is a prayer for peace, a mantra stating the presence of God an awakening to the divine mind of God, will of God, presence of God. believing, the mind believing, comes to know that love heals. Breathing is a miracle. It can be a prayer, a mantra, a pathway to recognizing the presence of God as love, acknowledging the will of God to love. Just breathing brings us into the presence that heals through love. Let us be still now and know that God is all of life, and God is love. As we go forth from this meditation, to those places we occupy in time and space, let us go forth with a greater determination to become an emissary of divine love and peace. For this opportunity in every moment, we give thanks in the name and the power of the universal way shower that resides at the core of our being, the living Christ. To this we say, Amen. We will take an offering for unity now. For those of you that are watching this live stream, I again invite you to come and join us. The energy here is much more fulfilling than watching it filtered through the technology of that screen that you're looking at. So please show up here. We'd love to have you come back and participate. And we will have a discussion group after this, as we usually do. And you can tithe in any number of these ways up here. For those of us here, let us bring to mind that gift we'd like to make. We can bring it to our hands. The gift we'd like to make to Unity of Boulder. And let's bless that gift with this offering prayer. Divine love, through me, blesses and multiplies all that I have, all that I give, and all that I receive, because I give. And so it is.
Only believe. Love heals. Love, pure love heals. Only believe. Love heals. Love, pure love heals.
Join me now, please. We dedicate this tithe to the will and the work of the Spirit of truth and to the victory of the Spirit of truth. Amen. I will also be speaking at the 11 o'clock service. So you can come back and get a recap on what I just said. In the meantime, you can go over to the fellowship hall. We have great refreshments over there, tea and things to chew on. And then you can, if you wish, join us in our discussion group, and we will discuss anything you want to bring up about this service, or about Unity in general, or you can even bring, see, over in that group, I don't have to be concerned about waxing political. Seriously, I can't wax politically here. But over in that group, I can share with you whatever you want to share about anything. So that's available to all of you. And Centitia's fine. She's great. She's wonderful. She's going to a dance recital of her daughter, which she couldn't possibly miss, taking place somewhere else, far away. But I think it's in Fort Collins or something. So she couldn't be here for the second service today. I will be filling in. To everyone, have a beautiful awakening day. So it is.